This is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So we're going to work on this bracelet, and this bracelet goes with the spring Equinox earrings that we made using the Shamrock Luck box. That's this box from Beading School. So this is where the earrings came from. And so I thought we need a bracelet. And so I took a bunch of the beads from that box and I added this gorgeous Preciosa 8mm pearl to make the bracelet. So this is what the bracelet looks like. Now, just a heads up, when I put the clasp on, I'll be putting it on this 2-unit piece, which is the same thing, and using all the same size beads, except instead of bicones, I used gemstone color round beads, and those beads are from the Beading School gemstone color fuchsia bag in Sun, and they're all round beads, and they're all these gorgeous colors. They go from 2mm, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8, and there are 1,000 beads in that bag. And you'll see when I put the clasp on, because I lost the clips for the clasp on this one, so I use this to put the clasp on. But I figure you probably want to know where I got these beads if you love these colors and other colors, and I'll show you later also that are in the bag. Look at these. Aren't these gorgeous? So these are just a few of the 1,000 beads that you get of these gemstone color round glass beads. So I'll link those down below. And like I said, when I put the clasp on, I'll explain a little bit more to you, about the bags. Now, I had originally planned to do an unboxing, which I still may do, but I just wanted you to know where the beads are coming from. All right, so I'm going to clear this up and we'll get started. Let's get a materials list going. So you need some 8mm pearls for this green one, and I'm using the 8mm Preciosa nacre pearls in light green, and this is from the Beading School box. Remember we unboxed the Romeo and Juliet pearl boxes? So this is from the Romeo box, and I love these green pearls, so I've used those. You'll need some 2mm round beads. You'll need some 3mm bicones. I didn't have any left, so I just put the earrings out. So you'll need 3mm bicones. You need a delica, a 3mm fire polish, and if you have that Shamrock Luck box, there is a 3mm fire polish, and I think it's a gray one, and I just didn't pull it out. You need a 6mm bugle. I'm using that slender bugle, and this we're going to use to, make structure on the back. So you really need those for structure. You probably use a regular 6mm bugle as well. I've got some jump rings or some chain in 4mm. I've got a clasp. So this is the clasp right here. This is also in the Shamrock Luck box. Let's see what else do we have here. We have a 15-0, Miyuki 15-0. We've got a half Tila. I've got a Miyuki 11-0 in a color and a Miyuki 11-0 in a gold, or the metallic you're using, and that's just for adding on the clasp at the end on the green one. If you want to make this one, all these beads are in that beautiful gemstone color round bead fuchsia bag in the Sun bag. If I can find these colors individually, I will definitely link them in the description box. We've got a little stop bead going on here. All right, so I think that's everything. So anything I missed, I will, or any other info that I have, and all the links will be in the description box below the video. So don't forget to click the down arrow, the show more, the more, little dots, the box will open, all the info will be there. All right, so let's get started. Okay, let's get started. So thread your needle with about 40 inches of thread, put on a stop bead with about a 10-inch tail. So I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead, 1/2 Tila and 3 15-0s, and I did that 8 times. I'm going to sew these into a circle by sewing through the first bead after my stop bead, which is this Tila, or 1/2 Tila, and then the first 15-0 after that one. So just like that. So we'll have a little circle, just like that. Okay, this is what I have so far. And your half Tilas will flop in and out. Just kind of press them out, so let's go to sort of like that. And I'm exiting this 15-0 after the 1/2 Tila. And if I mix up 1/2 Tila and Tila, it's all 1/2 Tila, because that's the only thing we're using. But occasionally I'll say Tila. All right, so we're exiting this 15-0 right here. I'm going to skip this middle 15-0. I'm going to sew through the next 15-0, half Tila, and 15-0. So we're reinforcing, but we're doing it by making a little picot in between the half Tilas. So it's going to kind of pop in. You want that little picot, so that little middle bead, to pop out this way. So just pull it with your, you can just give it a pull, or like I did, take your needle and just pop that middle bead over. So let's do that again. Exiting the 15-0 right here. I'm going to skip the middle one, sew through the next 15-0, half Tila, and 15-0. Just going to put my thumb on it. So just like that. Then I'm going to take my needle, and I'm going to pop that up just like that. You're just going to continue this all the way around. So exiting the 15-0, skipping the 15-0, sewing through the 15-0, half Tila, and the next 15-0. Put your thumb on it, give it a little pull. Encourage this one to sit up like that. So just continue that all the way around. Coming down to my last little bit of reinforcing here by making the picot. Get my thread out of the way here. So exiting the 15-0, skipping this one, sewing through the next 15-0, half Tila, and 15-0. I just want to complete this circle, so I'm going to go ahead a little bit. And then I'm just going to pop that little picot in, and then I'm just going to move ahead through, I'm going to skip this one through this 15-0 and the next half Tila. So through, exiting this one, skipping this one, so this is the first one we put on, sewing through the next 15-0 and half Tila. And that's just sort of to complete the circle. So just like that. Then I'm going to sew through the top hole of the one, the Tila, half Tila I'm exiting. So there you go. Okay, so we're exiting here. So the top hole of a Tila here, I'm just going to pop this one in. I'm going to skip the next one. Just with my finger, I'm going to pop this one in. I'm going to skip this one. Just turn this one in. And then the last one, like that, just to set me up, because I'm going to put some beads in between those half Tilas. Okay, we're going to pick up two 11-0s. We're exiting here. I'm just going to sew through this one like that. So the next Tila, two 11-0s through the next one. So just those four that we pushed in. Got it. Two more times. So just like that, and then you're exiting a Tila, half Tila. You're just going to advance through the next 11-0 after the Tila. So you want to be exiting in between two 11-0s. Okay, next up I'm going to pick up a 15-0, and I'm exiting the 11-0 after the half Tila. I'm going to sew through this 11-0, the half Tila, and the next 11-0. So I just want to put a little 15-0 in between the 11-0s. See, just like that. Sitting here, I'm going to sew through the next 11-0, half Tila, 11-0. Okay, you're going to do that two more times. Okay, last 15-0 in between. So exiting here, sewing through this 11-0, the half Tila, the 11-0, and that very first 15-0 you put on. You don't have to get them all together, but you just want to be exiting right here. That's what it looks like. Okay, so we're exiting the 15-0 right there. I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a Delica, and an 11-0, and I'm just going to hop over to that next 15-0 and sew through that one. Just going to place those right there. Do that again. 11-0, Delica, 11-0. Exiting here, just going to sew through this one. Just like that. So you can do that two more times. Okay, last 11-0 delica 11-0, exiting here, going to sew through this one. So that last 15-0, and then on through the next 11-0 delica 11-0. Just like that. Okay, so we're exiting the group of, this one group of 11-0 delica 11-0. Now I just want you to advance a little bit here. So the 15-0, so through the 15-0. I always like to complete the circle by going a little bit further. So that 15-0 and then these two here. So the 11-0 and the delica. So I don't want you to go through the last 11-0. I want you to come out of a delica. I'm going to pick up my pearl. And I'm going to drop it down. So you just want to make sure where you're exiting. So I'm exiting this side of the delica. Here's my pearl. I'm going to go to the other side where I have the delica and sew through the same side on this delica. Like this. So you see, I'm exiting on that side, sewing through this side. I'm going to place the pearl, and then I'm going to go back through the pearl, like that. And then through the delica right here. So the other side of this delica that we started with. Like that. So you'll have, your thread will be coming, see how it comes out of both sides through, and the same thing, the same thing on this end. You'll have two thread, a thread going around and through. So you'll be exiting the delica on the side of the pearl, right there. Okay, so we've got our pearl on, we're exiting the delica. I just want you to advance through the next 11-0. So you'll be exiting an 11-0 right there. I'm going to pick up 3 15-0s, exiting this 11-0. I'm just going to sew through the next 11-0 delica 11-0. Just filling in that corner and making a little base for the pearl. Do that again, 3 15-0s. Exiting right here, I'm going to sew through the delica, 11-0 delica 11-0. Just like that. I'm going to do that 2 more times. Okay, last 3 15-0s. Exiting this 11-0. I'm going to sew through the next 11-0 delica 11-0. Just going to place those on. And then I'm going to sew right up through that first 15-0 of the first group of 3 I put on. So you'll be exiting the 15-0 after the 11-0. We're going to make the little picot like we did here. So we're exiting this 15-0. I'm going to skip the middle one, and I'm going to sew through the next 15-0, 11-0 delica 11-0, and the next 15-0. And when I pull, it's going to pop that up a little bit. It's fine that it doesn't have to go against anything. It's fine that it's sitting right there because we're going to use those points to do some more beading. So I'm exiting the 15-0 after the 11-0. I'm going to skip the middle 15-0. I'm going to sew through the next 15-0, 11-0 delica 11-0, and the next 15-0. Like that. So do that 2 more times. Okay, so I put on my last picot. So there we go. I've come through the 11-0 delica 11-0, 15-0, and then the middle 15-0 right there. So we're going to go right through there. This is what we have. Okay, I'm going to pick up 5 of my 15-0s. So I'm exiting the middle bead of the picot here, of these 3 15-0s. Just going to hop over and sew through the middle 15-0 of the next group of 3. So we're kind of using these picots, 1 as decoration and 2 as it's giving us some structure. So I'm going to pick up 5 of my 15 O's, exiting this middle 15 O. I'm going to hop over to the next middle 15 O of the group of 3. And do that 2 more times. Last group of 5 15 O's. I'm exiting this middle bead here. I'm just going to sew down to the original one I started with, so the middle bead of that group of 3. It's going to complete that round, and then I'm going to advance my needle through the next 5 15 O's. So you want to complete that circle. Then I'm going to sew through the middle bead right there. So that 15 O. And then I'm going to sew through the next 15 O. Get your needle in there. The 11 O, the delica, and the 11 O. So we went from that middle picot bead to the side picot bead, so that 15 O, and then the 11 O, delica, 11 O. So just like that. So we just want to move down here. So I want to be, you want to be exiting the 11 O delica 11 O group right here. Okay, this is what it looks like so far. So now we're going to pick up a 15 O, a bicone, a 15 O. This is a 3mm bicone. You can really use any 3mm here, a round, a pearl, whichever you like. But I'm using the 3mm bicone, so I'm exiting the 11 O delica 11 O right here. Just going to sew through the next group. 11 O delica 11 O. Ouch, don't poke yourself. So it's just going to place that bicone right there. Do that again. 15 O, bicone, 15 O, exiting this 11 O. I'm going to sew through the next group right here. Just putting them on in the corners. So you can do that 2 more times. Okay, last 15 O bicone, 15 O through the 11 O delica 11 O. So that's going to place all my bicones on. This is what we have so far. So I've come around and put all my bicones on, and I'm exiting, this 11 O after the delica. Now I went around again and I reinforced the bicones. I just went around all the beads again. And I'm still exiting the 11 O here. If you don't have to if you feel it's snug enough, but I just felt like it needed to tighten it up. So I'm exiting this 11 O right in here. Just maneuver your needle down through this Tila right here. Get through. Just like that. It's just going to put a little thread there, but you're not going to see it, and it's just going to tack that down. Now I don't think you need to tack each one down because we're going to add a lot of beads around the back, and I think that's going to be fine. So now I'm exiting the bottom hole here of a Tila. I'm just going to turn it on the back to show what it looks like. So that's where my thread is exiting. So I'm going to work on the back a little bit. So we're exiting the bottom hole of this Tila. I'm just going to sew through the top hole just to set myself up to put some more beads on. I picked up my bugle bead, exiting here. I'm just going to sew through this half Tila right here. Pop that into place. I'm going to do that again. Bugle bead through this one. I still have my tail thread there, which we're going to use in a little bit. So you want to just make sure that that sits nicely and that you're not twisted. Be careful with these bugle beads because bugle beads in general are a little delicate. So you don't want to, and they're also a little sharp on the edge, so you don't want to cut your thread. So next bugle bead, like that. Another bugle bead. This one. And I kind of push them down and then gently pull so that I pull the bottom, pull it up at the top first, then press the bottom down just to be sure. All right, so I'll do that all the way around. I put on my last bugle. I came through the top of this half Tila. Now I'm going to, so I'm exiting the top of the half Tila. I'm going to sew down the bugle. So right there. Just want to hold that into place. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s, and I'm exiting the bottom hole of this bugle. I'm going to sew through the next bugle bead like that. Sew through the top hole of the Tila, and then down like so. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s. I'm going to sew through the bugle bead across the Tila, and then down this one again. You got it. I went right through this bugle on the other side. Add your 2 15-0s. Coming up, oops, through this one. Okay, just do that one more time to get your 2 15-0s right here. The last 2 15-0s through this one. The bugle, and then on through the Tila. Okay, this is what we have so far. Okay, this is what it looks like on the front. I'm going to go back to the back, so we'll leave that at the moment. I'm going to thread my tail thread onto a needle. You'll be exiting, it's hard to see, but I'm in there, I'm exiting actually the bottom hole of this Tila here, so I'm just going to sew through the top and then down through this bugle. Just want to finish the back, but we're going to use the tail thread. And these 2 15-0s. Just like that. Okay, I'm going to pick up my 2 millimeter. I'm going to sew through, mixing those 2 15-0s. I'm going to sew through the next 2 15-0s. I'm going to pick up another 2 millimeter, and then I'm going to sew through the next 2 15-0s, just like that. And then you're going to repeat that 2 more times. So I reinforced, this is my working thread now, so I reinforced, I added all the 2 millimeter round beads, and then I reinforced all the way around and made a couple of knots, in between the beads. So this is what the back is looking like so far. So you've done with your tail thread now. I'm going to turn it to the front. So I'm exiting the top hole of a half Tila. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s. And excuse my hands, this is from the Fireline. It just comes off on my fingers, so if my fingers look dirty, they're not. They're just Fireline dirty. Okay, so I'm exiting here. I'm going to sew through the middle bead of that 3 bead picot there, the following 15-0, the Tila, the next 15-0, and then the middle 15-0. So I'm going from this middle 15-0 here all the way to this one. See that? You don't have to do it all in one fell swoop. You can, do it in increments. Now you might have to change, you will eventually have to change to your size 12 beading needle. At the moment I'm still using, I think, a 10, but I really should change here, and I will next clip. So here I'm exiting that middle bead of the 3 bead picot. Just the middle bead here. I'm going to sew through the Tila like that. Okay, so I'm going to go change my needle size, and then we'll continue. I went down to my size 12 beading needle, and I really like these pony beading needles, the 12s, because they're very flexible. So if you need to bend your needle, which often happens with a size 12 beading needle, it's good that it bends because it gets into a lot of places that you can't normally get into. So you're exiting the top over the Tila. I'm going to sew through that middle bead of the picot, the 15-0, the next, the Tila, the next 15-0. So I can't get them all now, and I'm just going to go through the middle one after. there, and then the middle one. Now don't pull super, super tight here because we have to get through this Tila one more time. So it's going to be fun, but we'll do it. So here, I'm going to go, I'm going to add 2 15-0s. And then I'm going to sew through the top hole of the half Tila. So you're just putting those 2 15-0s all the way around. So do that to the end. Okay, last 2 not last two, my last group here. So here I'm going to put these 2 on, right there, and then my last 2 15-0s right here through the top hole of the Tila. Okay, now there's your unit. So I would suggest that you sew this thread in and use a separate thread to sew your units together. So, you know, it's up to you. You can snake your thread around. What we're going to end up doing is coming out of this top 15-0 here. So if you want to try to get through, the only thing is we have to get through this bead again. I don't want any more thread through this until we have to, you know, until that one pass. So I would suggest you just start a new thread and add it somewhere over here. All right. Let's we're going to sew a couple of units together, but first, you know, you're going to start with 2. I say start with 2 and then keep adding units on until you get your fit. I have done 7 units, and that gives me about 5 3/4 inches, and then my clasp will give me another inch, maybe even a little more. I can extend it, so it'll be perfect, sort of 7-ish inch bracelet. So let's sew 2 together. So you're exiting the top 15-0 right here. So it doesn't matter if you're exiting this way or this way. We're just going around in a circle anyway. So exiting here, I added a thread. I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a half Tila 11-0. Now, you're going to sew through, and I've already done it here, these 4 11-0s, the Tila, and then these 4. You want to come out of the top here. So this is where it's a little bit of a struggle. Like I had a little bit of trouble getting through that Tila, but try to get through as many as you can, and you just might have to just sort of, you know, wiggle your thread around, maneuver it around a little bit till you can get through the top. So you just have to, you know, if you can't get them all at once, do them one at a time. There we go. Here, so I'm going to go through my last one. You know, and if you didn't make it, you know, if you didn't pull super tight here, you know, I mentioned not to make it too tight because you had to get through them again, you should be fine. I've done it all these times and on some others that I put together, and it was fine. But, you know, some of them were a little bit more struggle than the others. It depends on how, you know, how tight I was, you know, how my tension was. So here my needle is bending a little bit, so I'm just going to straighten it out. I'm going to pick up my 11-0, my next Tila, half Tila. Oops, sorry about that. I'm trying to do it so the Tila is facing up because they're going to go in like this. So 11-0, half Tila, 11-0. And then you got to get down on this side. So through these. Like so. Back up these guys. Through the 11-0 and the bottom hole of that Tila. Right here. And then I'm going to sew through the top hole. So just like that. So we're going to be pushing these 2 in like that. All right, so this is where you are so far. Okay, so coming down to the part that might be frustrating. So I'm exiting this half Tila. I picked up my 2mm. You want to get through this Tila here. So kind of get your needle in there and just kind of, like, I pushed the beads down with my finger a little bit, and that's how I was able to get through it. Like that. Pop this guy in. like so. Okay, I'm going to pick up my 2mm and I'm going to sew through this one, so it's an easy one. Just have to get through that next Tila. That's all. So just like that. Okay, last, well, not the last bead, but the last sort of difficult part. So here, we're picking up our 2mm and we have to get through this Tila. So just kind of maneuver it around. Just move the beads out of the way. There we go. Like that. I mean, if there's another route around, or if you don't want to mess with going through that tail, I'm sure there's, you know, there's another way that this can be done in the center, but I already did it. So, you know, I'm giving you the sort of challenging version. And then my last 2mm through this Tila, half Tila. This is what we have so far. Okay, so we're exiting the half Tila. I'm going to sew through the 2mm like that. I'm going to pick up a 15-0 and I'm going to sew through the next 2mm half Tila and 2mm like that. 15-0 through the next 2mm and the half Tila like that. Then I'm going to pick up a 15-0. I'm going to sew through this, the half Tila, and then another 15-0 through the half Tila, and then I'm going to reinforce that around, and then you will have your connection on. So you're going to do that in between each one, and then come back and we'll put the clasp on. So we're going to put on the clasp, and miraculously things have changed. I have two little units here, and the reason that is I put the clasp on. I did the clip, so here's our clasp. I think it came out beautiful, and we'll look at it again at the end. But my clips got corrupted for some reason, and I can't use them. So I started this one. A bracelet using these beads, and I feel like I need to show you where I got these beads from because you might love these. Aren't they pretty? So I got these out of the, and I was going to do an unboxing, but I'll just give you a little look right here and maybe we'll do an unboxing as well. So these are gemstone color fuchsia bags, and this is in gemstone color fuchsia bag in Sun. These are from Beading School, and this bag of beads has 1,000 beads in it, and they're all round beads from 2mm, 3mm, 4mm, 6mm, and 8mm, I think. Yeah, so we've got all different sizes here, and there are 1,000 of them. And just to give you an example, so these are the 3 I picked out of the bag. Aren't they beautiful? I mean, if you're looking for sort of maybe a pearl or alternative that is much more affordable, these are really, really pretty. They're not the Preciosa, nacre pearls, but they're beautiful. Look how pretty that looks. I think that looks gorgeous. So here's some of the color combinations that are in there, and here I picked out the ones that the sort of lavenders that are in there, and this is just a little sample. There are corals in here and all different colors, and then there's also a moon bag with all the different blues and greens, and like I said, I'll do an unboxing on it also, but if you want to check them out, they're so reasonable. I think it was in US dollars, I think it was maybe 32 or 35 for 1,000 beads from 2mm to 8mm. So really great. All right, so let's put the clasp on. So that's why this happened. Okay, I threaded my needle with about 1.5 feet of thread. I put on a stop bead, left a tail to sew in. So I've sewn through the half Tila, pulling a little bit. I've added a 2mm, a 3mm, and on the green bracelet, I added 2 11-0s and a 3mm fire polish. Came through the ring, 3mm fire polish and 2 11-0s. So whichever you like, you can do either way. But this one, I've done the 2mm, the 3mm. Came through the ring, put on the 3mm and a 2mm, and then I've sewn through the half Tila on the other side. I'm going to turn my piece over. I'm exiting that half Tila. I'm going to sew down through this bugle bead. So just like that. Then I'm going to sew through this 2mm right here on the back. And then through the, it gets through that guy. So through the 2mm, then the 2 15-0s, like so. And then through the bugle bead, like that. And then I'm going to go around again. So you can turn it on the front now if you like. Go through the 2mm, the ring, the 3mm in the ring, and then the 3mm. Make sure that ring pops in between those two 3mm. You don't want that on the thread. So through the 3, through the 2, like so, and then through that top hole of that half Tila, just like that. Okay, so we're exiting the half Tila here, and if you sew these in really tight right now, you know, along the back or the sides, I think you could leave it this way. I'm just going to add a little bit of extra structure. So here I'm exiting the half Tila. I'm going to sew through this bugle bead, change your needle size. You know, you don't want to crack a bead. Through this 2mm, these two, and these two 15-0s right there. So we're exiting these 2 15-0s. I'm going to pick up 4 15-0s, and you know, this is optional. You don't have to do this part if you feel it's nice and snug. 4 15-0s. I'm coming from this 2mm through the 3mm ring and 3mm, like that. And I'm going to pick up 4 15-0s, and I'm going to sew back through these two. Now we're getting a little snug in here, so just be careful. So just like that. And then what I do is I just sew up through these. You might even be able to use 3 or even 2 11-0s. I'd sew up through these again, and I'd put a knot around here rather than try to get through those again. So just sew through the beads again, and then put your knot in, and then you're just going to do the same thing on the other side. When you do the other side, you know, you're just going to do the exact same way. You just happen to have, you know, a couple of rings here just to give you a little space, you know, to put your, you know, to get your toggle bar through the ring. Okay, we're back and we're done, and I love how it came out. We had a few, you know, we had some challenges along the way, especially with the clasp, but it did give me an opportunity to show you this sooner than I had expected. I was gonna, you know, wait a little bit, but these are so gorgeous. So check out those, the fuchsia, the gemstone color fuchsia bag in Sun, and the moon, like I said, is all gorgeous greens and blues and turquoise and, oh, it's lime greens. They're just stunning, and so reasonable. So here are the earrings that we made. These are the spring Equinox earrings, and here's the bracelet to go with it. These are using Preciosa pearls here, or you can use these gorgeous gemstone color glass beads here. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you make it, post it on Facebook, do your colors, you know, whatever you love. All right, take care. See you next time. Bye.